Do you need quick money? Do you want to annoy people by haggling at yard sales? Have you ever watched Storage Wars and thought, hey, that seems easy? Well, if you have, then this game is for you. This is Storage Hustle, a game about buying units and scavenging yard sales in order to flip them for big profits. Join the adventure as we start with very little money and a garage I call a house, and make my way to become a millionaire with several properties and many cars. If you are ready to join along, then grab your water and get excited. My name is NooBee, and this is 100 Days of Storage Hustle. Quick disclaimer for anybody wondering, if I do sound ill in any of these voice clips, then that is because I definitely am. I don't know what I have, but that's all I'll mention. Carry on with the video. We began our first day in this quiet little town by studying the tutorial in great detail. The steps seemed easy enough, so I took the journey to my first auction lot and took a sneak peek at some units. I saw a couple of units that looked enticing, so I tried to bid my heart out without spending too much, and managed to snatch myself both units. I loaded the car up with my new items and took them home before making sure they were all repaired and selling them off. Once each item had sold, I lay in bed for the first night and saw that we managed to actually make a good profit for our first day. The work was continued on day 2, as I got in my car and ventured around my street until I saw some yard sales and I had to check it out. Nothing looked amazing there, so I carried on my travels to the storage auction. Some units stood out to me, so I bid on them again, making sure not to go too high, and managed to grab hold of 2 once again. I took all items home, repaired them and sold them off to any willing buyers. The nightly report came through and showed that we had another profitable day. Things were looking pretty good so far. Day 3 started like normal, with us excitedly getting into our car and driving off to the auction. The units were looking, how do I say this, pretty rough. That was, however, until I saw the last 2, and man, I was ready. I purchased both and found myself some epic items, which was amazing. Whilst on my journey home with all these valuable items, I accidentally hit someone with my car. It was definitely accidental. I drove away from the scene and got home, where I sold all of my items and slept, knowing that today was a big profit day for me. Since my money was looking quite good, I purchased our first price scanner upgrade on day 4. This upgrade allowed me to scan items that were of higher quality now. This was a perfect spend of money, and I wasted no time in making good use of it. I took to my car and drove around looking for a yard sale. Once found, I parked up and began scouring around to see the best deals possible. I managed to find a ton of good deals at these yard sales, and so I took everything home to my humble garage and listed my items, waiting for each one to sell off before sleeping the night away. Today was the day that I wanted to step up my game. I jumped out of bed and went straight to the auction, where I checked out every unit until I had found the one. I knew that this was my chance, and I began bidding everything I had. I managed to get it for what I thought was a good deal, and looked at the items. This was when I saw it. My first legendary item. In this unit, I found a katana laying near the back, and I knew that this had to be worth a lot of money. I packaged all of my items up into the car and drove home, where they were then listed and sold. This was a great day, and it showed clear as day on my nightly report. Days 6 and 7 were pretty busy. I spent a lot of time exploring yard sales across the town, trying to find good deals that I could take for myself. I managed to flip some great items early within the day, and purchased the next price scanner upgrade, which allowed me to once again scan higher quality items. I used this new upgrade on even more yard sales, and I prayed that I had made some good profit on the ones that I bought. To end my weekend, I ventured to the storage lots and bought some very pricey storage units. Well, pricey for how much I actually have. Nothing particularly stood out in these units, but nevertheless I took my items home, listed them on eBay and slept, finding out that I did in fact make a great profit for these days. I'm genuinely excited to see what my future brings. Although the last couple of days were action-packed, days 8 and 9 were possibly even better. We began by purchasing our first repair tool upgrade. If you didn't know already, the repair tool allows us to fix items that were broken, turning them into bad quality. However, now we could turn the items into the next tier up. I wanted to use this new upgrade, so I took to the yard sales once again and explored all of my options. I picked out only the most profitable items, and before doing anything else, I remembered that I had skill points that I was yet to use, so I opened my skill tree menu and bought only the important upgrades, or at least the important ones that I could afford at that time. I carried on my day at the yard sales, taking my time going back home and loading my items and going to the next sale. Once I had been to every sale in the neighbourhood, I decided to visit the storage auction before night came and ended up grabbing one unit, which I hustled back home, repaired and priced everything. I felt accomplished at this point, and my end of day report did not disappoint, as it showed me that day 9 was my most profitable day so far. We are scaling up pretty fast. Another couple of successful days come up now, as we begin days 10 and 11 by scouting the units once more. One unit in particular caught my attention, so I began bidding and eventually beat my competition. I looked around the unit and found a legendary golden AK-47. That's amazing. I put it safely aside and explored the rest of the unit, before packing everything away and moving on to the next. The unit door lifted up and I immediately noticed a canoe. Could this be worth a lot of money? I guess there's only one way to find out. I began bidding and once again managed to win. I walked over to the canoe and it was legendary. This was perfect. I packaged everything up and went home, where all the items were repaired and listed. Our profits for the day came out to an outstanding $8,000, and this started my motivation to carry on. With barely any sleep, I grabbed my computer mouse and purchased myself the next repair tool, making our future profits even better. I wasted no time after before hopping in the truck and exploring my town for more yard sales. Maybe it was the lack of sleep, but today felt quicker than yesterday. I finished up everything at the sales and made my way home with the loot. I went through the correct order of operations and got in bed, read my report showing our big profits once again, and sleeping the rest of the night away. After the past few days I was feeling confident, so I upped my game again on day 12 and ventured to the storage auction to buy yet another unit. The units today were looking intimidating, but of course I did not let that stop me. I started bidding on a new unit and the cost was racking up quite fast, but I stayed focused and won it. I looked around and dread filled my soul. It was looking like a complete bust. That was until I moved a couple of boxes and found myself a legendary magic wand. This is just what I needed. Since this one was looking pretty good, I started bidding on another unit, as it seemed quite underpriced for what I could see. I managed to win the lot for what seemed really cheap, and looked around to find plenty of epics and even another golden AK-47. Today is looking amazing. I made my way home with a truckload of items, sold them all, and by my calculations, made around $15,000 in profit. As night rolled by, I decided to do a cheeky move and put $2,000 on blackjack. What was I thinking? Although severely against the odds, I did actually manage to win, and that put me at around $17,000 profit for the day. I'll take it. Day 13 started bright and early, and the first thing we did was purchase the last price scanner upgrade possible. Now we could price scan even legendary items. Before putting my new scanner to use, I decided to use up all of my skill points, then made my way towards the storage auction and had a look at our possible units. I saw one that caught my eye, and I managed to snag it for $5,000. Looking around the unit, after everyone had left, I found 3 legendaries laying on the floor, including possibly the most valuable one yet to date. A legendary golden deagle worth $4,000. That almost covers the entire unit. I packaged everything up into the truck and looked into the other units, when yet another one caught my eye. It appeared to possibly have a car inside, but looking closer at it, I could clearly tell that it was just a pile of boxes, so I left it and drove home. Once everything was home, repaired and scanned, I hopped in my truck again and visited some yard sales to end my night. I took my findings back home and listed every single item on the site, waiting for people to buy it all, and then got in bed. I checked the night report and read how we almost had a $22,000 day in profit. This seems surprisingly easy. I was ready for a great day, and to begin day 14, I got in my truck and ventured to the storage auction before sunrise. I saw a unit that had potential, as it again seemed to have a car in it. But this time the boxes were not visible, so I took the gamble and started bidding, eventually winning it and uncovered the tarp over it, revealing a car. Finally. Now, I'll be the first to say, this isn't the most luxurious car, nor is it even a great car. But nevertheless, it's still a car. I kept it there for now whilst I explored the other units, and saw another one that tempted me. I bid my heart out more and beat my competitors, winning the unit eventually. Then I checked out what items I had got. I saw another tarp, so I slid it off to reveal boxes. That is unfortunate, but it's not over just yet. My eyes glazed the floor and noticed a few legendaries, which is always amazing. But my worry was whether or not I had made profit after these two lots. Although fear of failure ran through me, I had a plan on my mind. I took all my items home and only sold off the commons and rares. Bear with me here. Once sold, I purchased the last repair tool upgrade for $10,000 and began repairing the epics and legendaries to perfect quality, increasing the prices ever so slightly. I listed the rest and got in bed, crossing my fingers that I did enough, and we did. Surprisingly, today was the most money I had made yet. Not sure how, but we did it. I felt unstoppable on days 15 and 16, and so I wanted to make these days huge. These units had nothing on me, or so I thought. I took the truck to the storage auction and went through my routine of sneaking a peek to get an edge over the competitors, then began bidding for a unit that I thought could have a car. The money was racking up $5,000, $6,000. The unit ended up quite high, and I immediately ran to the car tarp and lifted it, revealing a nice little beetle car. How cute. I like it. It also came with a lot of epics, so all in all, not a bad first unit. Today is looking pretty good. I decided to waste no more time for now at the other units and ventured around the neighborhood for yard sales, hopefully to make my money back. Luckily, I did manage to find some good items for a good price, so I took them home and sold each one. If I calculated correctly, I should have somehow managed to make back almost all, if not more, than I had lost. Phew. After that big event, I felt hopeful, so I risked my luck again with another unit and bought it. Once inside, I looked around and it's not great. Oh dear. I didn't panic too much, as now I had a secure plan to get me out of debt, so I did some yard sale negotiations once again, and just like I'm Gary V, I was able to hustle a lot of great items, which I later took home and sold off. Those couple of days were long and daunting, but I persevered, and when I got to my end of day report, it showed me that we were able to get back to $20,000. Day 17 was a sluggish one, but somehow pretty productive. I started like normal, hopping in my truck and driving to the lot, then scanning the units top to bottom until hopefully one caught my eye, and thankfully one did. I managed to snatch it for quite a low price and packed up my items into the truck. I didn't want to end IJ just yet, so I explored the yard sales near me and checked for any great deals. The time was passing by very quickly, so I took my newly gathered items back home, listed them off and got into bed. The last couple of items eventually sold, and I was able to get a total bank value of $32,000. I woke up on day 18 at the auction lot. Wait, is that right? I guess let's just roll with it. I wanted to get here earlier than my competitors, so I could look around and get my views first of all. I saw a unit that intrigued me, and so I purchased it for around $10,000. I was praying on my knees for a car under this tarp, and when I lifted it, I saw boxes. Not again. I gathered the other items in the unit and boxed them up in the truck, then began bidding on another unit, hoping it would make my money back. I eventually won it and looked around to see that we actually got some pretty good items. Again, I packaged it all up and took it home, but before listing it, I left in my truck, and before the sky turned dark, I scavenged around at yard sales in hopes to secure no losses. I only managed to grab a couple of items this time, before heading home and selling everything. I clutched my pearls while I read my nightly report, and I gave a big sign of relief to see that we only lost $800 for the day. It's kinda sad that we didn't make money, but I'd much rather take an $800 loss instead of what could have been a $10,000 loss. Although the past few days were somewhat disappointments, I felt good today. I began day 19 by venturing to the storage auction, and straight away found a unit that I desperately wanted. I used up a large sum of my money on the last bid and achieved the win, then looked around and saw 2 legendary items. That's just what we needed. I didn't get too excited, but instead I packed it all into my truck and looked at one more unit. This was another possible car under a tarp, but the more I looked at it, I could tell that this was definitely a car. I kept my cool so the competitors didn't catch on, and managed to score the unit for $15,000, then walked over to the tarp and slid it off, revealing another car worth over $20,000. Finally, a great day. I took the car home and put a for sale sign over it, and someone came across the road and offered $23,000 for it, so I agreed and shook his hand. Once the deal had gone through, I took the bus back to grab my truck and items, then took them home too and sold them off. I got in bed and saw the report to see that we made an outstanding $23,000 profit, putting our total bank value at $53,000. We are scaling up pretty fast now. Days 20 and 21 were spent primarily as a money builder. I guess every day is like that, but these were important, I promise. Firstly, I decided to sell my beloved truck for $6,000 and use that money and some of my other bank funds to buy myself a van. The van cost me around $26,000, but it seemed worth it due to its size. I drove our new van to the auction site and purchased my first unit of the weekend for around $9,000, which seemed pretty good. Looking around it, I can tell that for $9,000 I had a pretty good deal here. I sorted my items into our new vehicle and carried on with the next unit, which was a slight issue. You see, I began bidding on it, saying in my head no more than 6 or 7k, and during this speech to myself, I accidentally zoned out and ended up buying it for $10,000. Whoops. I thought maybe that there was a hidden item worth thousands, but there was not. Another big bust. I drove back home, hoping that the items from Unit 1 was enough to cover my losses. I stayed home while my items sold and saw that we did in fact make enough money from the sales to cover my losses, and even put us $1,000 in profit for the weekend, but we were not done just yet. I hyped myself up and proceeded to buy 2 more units, one for $9,000 and the other for $10,000. I had high hopes for these, but unfortunately when selling the items, the realization kicked in that we did not make profit from these, but sadly lost around $4,000 instead. This seemed like a common theme so far, and I really don't like it. Now comes our heavy downfall. Let's just get into it. I began driving to the lot on day 22 and scouted the units, seeing 3 potential wins. I won the first unit, spending around $10,000 on it, and when looking around, I noticed how barren and empty it was. This unit was a heavy bust, not a great start at all. The second unit I may have bought for a little bit too much. I paid $13,000 for it, and once again, walking in, I saw absolutely nothing good. Some commons, some rares, heck even some epics, but nothing to make my money back. Third time's the charm, right? Well, I guess we'll find out. I bought the last unit with almost all of my remaining money, and although there was still not a lot in this unit, it was significantly better than the previous 2, so I can't really complain. I drove back almost in tears, and as I slumped into bed, I checked my report and read about how we had lost $23,000. I really needed days 23 and 24 to make even a portion of my money back, so I forgot the units for a while and focused on purely yard sales. Each day I explored the yard sales in the neighbourhood, scanned any items that seemed worth it, and did a cheeky repair to increase their value. I made plenty of purchases at these sales, and when I got home, I made sure they were all in perfect condition before selling them off. Day 23 was a great start, as we were able to double our money in such a short amount of time. And day 24 carried that on, and it was a perfect end to a great set of days, with $8,000 in profit. Day 25 was spent very similar to the last couple of days, with one difference. I started by going back to the units and trying my luck again. I found a unit I liked the look of, and the started price seemed really good. I ended up grabbing it for around $4,000, and inside I saw some valuable items. It took some time, but we finally got an okay one. Before heading home, I stopped off at some more sales and bought any valuable items I could find. Each item was then deposited into the garage, repaired and price checked, and listed onto the site for everyone to buy. I got my comfy PJs on and read the report, seeing that we had made a further $6,000 profit for the day. 3 consecutive profitable days in a row. Look at us go. Days 26 and 27 were seemingly my upcoming in this quiet little town. I jumped through the window of my truck and hit the acceleration until arriving at my destination of the storage lot. I glanced at the units and saw 2 that interested me, so I put in my final bids and got both of them for around $16,000. Looking inside them, I noticed yet another tarp, so I slid it off, and by my surprise, I found a luxury car worth $25,000. Now we are making some big money. I calmed myself and packed up the rest of the items and moved on to another unit, since the day was going so well. I saw a smaller unit that had a second tarp covering something in the corner, so I began bidding and eventually won. I flipped the tarp, revealing my second car for the day. This is insane. I travelled a while to get both cars back home and listed them off to potential buyers, where the big car finally sold for $34,000 and the smaller car sold for over $9,000. Wow. After this great turn of events, I had a sneaky plan. Whether it would work or not was a mystery to me. I went to the dealership and used my haggling skills to purchase the truck for $14,500, and I drove it back to my house to sell. An individual came over and we negotiated a little before settling on a final price of $19,000. It actually worked. I can now flip trucks on the daily. With my new load of cash on hand, I decided that it was time for an upgrade in my life. I drove around until I saw a nice little house for sale. I looked around it and decided that, yep, I wanted this. So I withdrew some money at the bank and bought my new house for $25,000. It wasn't anything too special, but it was definitely an upgrade. To end my night, I tested the capabilities of the new garage by buying items from local garage sales and listing them to my loyal buyers. Then once everything had sold, I got ready in my new comfy bed in my new fancy house and slept like a baby. I carried on my sneaky tactics on day 28, and my first event was a quick and easy truck flip. I haggled the dealership down to $16,000 and drove it back home, where I then sold it for $20,000. Easy money. With this secure method, I felt more confident in my day, so I took to the storage lot and bought myself 3 units throughout the day. 2 units were, as I would say, pretty mid, as there were no cars to report, but some good items that made my profits. The third and final unit was the big one, the behemoth. Although there were still no cars, I could clearly see a lot of epics and legendaries that would make me big bucks in the upcoming hours. Day 29 carried on the streak, and we started with a slight dilemma. I liked the van that we had, but it was quite large and too bulky, so I decided to purchase the truck for $16,000 from the dealership and sold my beloved van for $27,000. I drove our new fast and slick truck to the storage unit and purchased myself 2. The first was a potential car, but examining it closer, I could see that this was in fact just a pile of boxes. Quite sad. The second was also a potential car, but seeing how the front of the car was actually poking through the tarp, yeah, I said through the tarp, and when lifting it up, it unveiled a police car. That's pretty cool. I took everything home and speed ran selling, watching our money slowly rise before sleeping. The sun was shining on day 30, and we immediately drove to the dealership to flip our van. I purchased it for $24,000 and flipped it to a great individual for $28,000. Pretty good start. I then ventured back to the storage lot and bought myself 2 units. This was sadly a rough day for lots, as both units turned out to be huge busts, with nothing special or valuable inside. Uh-oh. I risked it once more with the big unit, and when I walked around, I saw the motherload of legendaries, and even a compact car. This was insane. The car came home first and listed for sale before heading back to grab the items and deposit them back home as well. The car and items had sold, and I got in bed to read my nightly report, showing an impressive $36,000 in profit for the day. That was unbelievable. This now puts our funds at around $85,000, and we are soon to be rich. Days 31 to 33 were pretty much the same each day. We began by purchasing a van and flipping it to an unexpected customer, then driving to the units where I would purchase overall 6 units across the span of 3 days. The units on day 31 were amazing, and I made sure that everything had sold, including a new car and several legendaries, before reading the report about a $51,000 profit day. 32 was similar, but before the units came in, I decided to have a little fun break and did some Sugar Pop. Sugar Pop is pretty much like slot machines, but fun. I played it until the units became available and sadly lost $5,000, but that kind of just makes sense. I bought 1 unit for the day and managed to obtain another police car, which came home with a few other rares and epic items. Again, I sold it all and read my nightly report to see our small but noticeable profit. 33, which was our great last day, starting with another van flip, then purchasing 2 units. The first I had bought was for $22,000, and it contained several, and I mean several, legendaries. Not too shabby. Number 2 was bought for $12,000, and this one was sadly a big bust, as I had no car under its tarp and no legendaries. Everything had sold at the end of each day, and we were sitting comfortable at around $150,000. Look at us go. Day 34 was an odd day to say the least. We made it to the storage lot early in the morning, and I purchased my first unit of the day for what I thought was extremely underpriced. I seriously thought that I could at least triple my investment with this. I then bought my second unit, and under its tarp I revealed a new car. This was amazing and all, but something happened to my game and it forced me to restart. I loaded back in, and luckily my car was home and safe, but unfortunately when I went back to grab the rest of my items, they were no longer there, or in my truck. RIP. That's a heavy blow. Since we still had money in our pockets, I purchased another unit for $22,000, and it had a very nice car inside, so you best believe I'm keeping that one and adding it to my collection. I parked it up at my house and brought my items back home to sell, and learned later that night that we sadly lost $10,000 for the day. It could have been a lot worse, but still not fun to see. Day 35 was pretty average, as it begins with a daily van flip.
You know the rules.
I then drove my fancy truck up to the storage lots and purchased a small unit because I could tell that there was a car. I revealed which car it was, and it was an old sedan. Rough, but it was still a car. I searched and bought a second unit for $15,000, and RIP. A big old bus. That is not how I wanted today to go, but oh well. I took it all home and sold the items, then slept knowing that I had lost $8,000 for the day. Day 36 started with another simple van flip. Who would have guessed? It felt cheesy to do this, as I could just do it every day or two, but I found it great, not as a moneymaker but as a security type thing, so I don't lose too much money. I drove to the storage lot straight after and bought myself a large unit for a whopping $23,000. This unit was amazing, and I really mean amazing. I lifted the tarp in the corner to unveil a nice looking car that I thought I could sell for a few thousand more. But as I looked at the rest of the items scattered around, I quickly realised that I didn't need to sell this to make profit. So far it's looking real good. I looked at the second unit and my eyes were immediately drawn to an item close to me. I didn't want to bid and potentially lose, so I insta-bought the unit and instantly knew that we were going to make big money after today. I took all of my goodies home and listed them off while I parked the car neatly at the house. I got rid of the empty boxes and pulled out my tablet to read the end of day report. $43,000 in profit. I think I'm rich now. Sitting comfortably at $183,000, I thought to myself that I deserved another upgrade in life. So on day 37, I hopped in the truck and drove around until I parked across from the luxury house for sale. This house was listed for $35,000, but that was clearly no issue for us. So I purchased it and looked around, getting rid of any trash left in the rooms. I got to the bedroom upstairs and, who left this here? Okay, let's just carry on. I wanted to relocate my cars to the new headquarters, so I spent the whole day driving back and forth to the old house and the new house. Then once night fell, I tested my new bed and knocked out extremely fast. Last night was so good, and on day 38 my energy for money making had skyrocketed. I started our fresh new day with a quick visit to the car dealership for an easy van flip, then drove around the village until I arrived at the storage lot. I saw a small unit listed for a very low price, and looking around I could see some potential profit. I bought the unit and repaired everything until I could auto sell it all. I then purchased my second unit for the day at around $20,000, and inside there was a tarp with no car. This was sad, but I still managed to get some great items worth a lot of money. The third unit was right next door, so I put my final offer of $8,000 and got myself a nice little car and some valuables. I took almost all the items home and the car home and sold the items off. The final report showed us sitting at $166,000 with almost $20,000 profit for the day. $200,000 is coming closer and closer every day. I carried on the routine from yesterday and immediately made my way to the storage lot on day 39 to buy my first unit. This small unit was listed for a low price again, but I could clearly see some legendaries, so I put in a winning offer of $8,000 and it was all mine. This one was looking pretty good, but let's continue. The big unit was next, and like the last, this was looking great. I bid $20,000, and when I looked inside, I could see that I had won a car and plenty of legendaries. Amazing. Even though today was already strong, I kept my cool and carried on. The third unit of the day was another small one, but all that was in there was a potential car. I bought the unit for $9,000 and slowly removed the tarp, revealing a second car. This day just keeps getting better. I took the cars home and parked them up before heading back to grab my items and depositing them into the garage. The items were eventually repaired fully and sold, and then I ended my night by reading the report and seeing that we had made around $32,000 profit, and our bank was sitting comfortably at $199,000. We are just so close to that $200,000. Day 40 began and I carried on my money making methods. I drove to the storage auction and looked around at each and every lot before making my choices. The first unit of the day was a small unit with what appeared to be another car under a tarp, so I offered $11,000 and they accepted it. I removed the tarp and did in fact find a nice looking car underneath. Perfect start. Unit 2 was a larger unit, and not only did it have a possible car, but I could clearly see plenty of legendaries just laying on the floor. I put in a final bid of $20,000 and went over the tarp to lift it off. This time, however, there was no car, which was sad, but opening the boxes made me realise that we had plenty of legendaries here to cover me. I packaged everything up and deposited the items at home while I repaired them and sold them off to any buyers. There were no massive changes to my money, so I decided to do a late night evening van flip to help boost me that extra bit more. I bought the van and listed it up for a higher price, but tonight it seemed like buyers were being very picky as no one wanted to buy it for my price, so I slept and prayed that someone tomorrow would buy it. The structured days were not only important from a money making viewpoint, but also a big reason as to why my car collection grew massively. Days 41 to 44 were the same each day. The first thing I did was I got out of bed and checked on my van that was for sale. Someone was waiting all night to buy it, and we eventually made an agreement. Once the deal had finalised, I drove my van to the auction site and began my work. The first unit we bought looked very promising from the start. I could see another tarp covering something in the corner, as well as a couple of items, but my eyes were mainly focused on that car. I just had a feeling. I spent a whopping $28,000 for this unit, and when I lifted the tarp, it revealed a freaking Lamborghini. What? This might be the best start to a day yet. We carried on our expedition and I bought a second unit for $16,000. I'm not sure why I was even interested in this unit, but looking around and opening boxes, I could tell that this was not good at all. I spent $16K on a unit that had literally nothing inside. Wild. I decided to sleep the night away to prepare for the next few days. These days were great too, as we spent a lot of money purchasing 3 units for myself, which unfortunately had no cars this time, but quite possibly the most legendaries we had seen in one day. We sold everything off in perfect condition and made around $28,000 profit. Day 43 only had 2 units, which again were quite costly on my part, but for a good reason. I managed to grab myself not 1 but 2 cars from these lots, as well as many legendaries to get some big profits. I drove home that night, and whilst approaching my driveway, I couldn't help but notice that it was getting a bit too hectic and busy. So while I repaired my items and sold them off, I thought about what I could do to help deal with this mess. The night came and my bed was calling my name, but before I could get in, I did a quick check of the report and read about our $13,000 profit day. $1 million is becoming a real possibility now. Day 45 was spent moving cars around, not money making this time. I know, crazy right? I decided that hey, I have 3 houses technically, so why not give each of them a car? And that's exactly what I did. I looked over my collection of cars and gave each one a different tier, from lower class to middle class but nice, and then of course luxury class. Once each had their own tiers assigned, I started my day and took 4 lower class cars to the starting house. Well, it's not really a house, more like a garage with a bed, but oh well. Once finished, I then took 5 middle class cars to the normal house, which if you remember costed us $25,000. So we gotta have some good ones here. Then once that was all done and dusted, I organised the cars left in a neat parking order, putting the middle class but nice cars to the side of the house and the luxury cars parked on the driveway. I can't forget about the Lamborghini though, so I placed that at the front of the house, as a showpiece of course. Whilst moving everything around at the luxury house, I somehow managed to get a police car stuck in a bus stop. Not quite sure how that happens or how that's even possible, but I guess it's just going to have to stay there for a bit. The house was looking so nice and the cars were looking perfect, so I took to my comfy bed yet again and slept the night away. I woke up on day 46 to look out of my window and see that the police car had moved, so I ran downstairs and tested to see if I could get it unstuck, which I could. I moved it off the road and parked it neatly with the others, then hopped in my loyal truck and drove to the storage lots. I viewed the units of the day and they were looking pretty good. In particular, I saw 2 units that I liked the look of, so I put in my final bids and managed to secure both. Both units had a tarp, and under both tarps we gained 2 different cars to add to our collection. An unfortunate mishap occurred today, however, as we somehow got stuck, so I had to quickly reload. Upon returning to the game, I noticed that we only had 1 car now. Does this mean that we lost one? That is so sad. I didn't let that ruin my mood for the day though, so I took my items back home and sold them off. I also noticed that the day had completely reset, and I still had plenty of hours left for the day, but I didn't think that was quite fair, so I did the right thing and responsible thing and slept early, just so I don't cheat. I started day 47 by wandering around the neighbourhood thinking about what I'm gonna do with all of my money when I become a millionaire. I spent some time on this before heading to the storage auction and buying some units. The first unit of the day is one I bought because I noticed a legendary reskinned shotgun on the floor. I purchased it for a good price and repaired that shotgun ASAP, but once again, something happened to my game and it was bugging out. I reloaded my game and saw that the shotgun was nowhere to be found. Why does this game hate me? I persevered through it and bought my second unit, which rewarded me with a car. I might need a new house at this point. The third and final unit of the day was just a small one, but again I could tell that there was a car under the tarp. So I put in my offer and coincidentally managed to get the same car. What are the chances? I brought the cars home and parked them neatly before returning to the lot and bringing my items home to sell. I lay down in my bed while the last couple of items found their buyers and opened my iPad to do a bit of late night sugar pop. I played for a couple of hours and somehow managed to hit a big $10,000 win, ending the day at $170,000. Not quite at the level we were before, but we're still closing in on that 200k. Day 48 started early and I made my way straight to the storage site. The units I wanted were not open until 9 AM, and since Sugar Pop did so well for me last night, I decided to play until the units opened up. Our roll kept going as by 9 AM we had made $400 and that made me confident for the day ahead. I bought 3 units for the day, the first being a small unit for around $9,000, mainly because in the corner of my eye I saw an M-word pass laying flat on the floor. Me being a self-proclaimed professional in the field by now, I knew that a perfect condition pass is valued upwards of $10,000, so you knew I had to take this up. I packaged up everything valuable and put it all in my truck before moving on to Unit 2. This was another small unit, as my final bid totaled $7,000. I wanted this unit since I noticed a legendary reskinned pistol sitting at the back. Looking into the boxes for the unit, I also noticed a golden deagle too, so this unit was definitely worth it. Unit 3 was our large one, as the only thing in there was a car under a tarp. I bid $14,000 for it and managed to win, then made my way to the tarp and pulled it off, revealing another car. I honestly might need to sell some of these soon. I took the car to the normal house since it wasn't luxury enough, then took a bus back to the storage lot and drove home with my items to sell. My eyes and body were extremely sleepy, but I grabbed my end of day report and read $15,000 profit for the day, putting our bank value at $185,000. Now that is a great way to end the night. Similar to yesterday, day 49 started with a quick trip to the storage lot and playing Sugar Pop until 9 AM. This time we weren't so lucky, as when the clock ticked over, we had lost around $3,000, but I was determined to make it all back. The only unit I'd bought today was a small unit with only a car visible. I put in my offer for $8,000 and it was sold to me. I pulled the tarp off and yep, another car. I seriously have to do something with all of these. All other units were looking a bit rough, so I drove everything home and slept early. Day 50 was a big money day for us. We immediately drove to the storage lot and scouted a few units that had big potential. Our first unit costed us around $19,000 and it was definitely worth it. The one thing I noticed was the car tarp, and when I uncovered what was underneath, I saw a nice looking car. Definitely one worthy of staying at the luxury house. I sneaked through the boxes and saw so many legendaries, maybe the most legendaries we had got in a single unit. The second unit was a smaller one, and I put in my bid for $9,000, which eventually won. This was, however, quite unlucky, as looking through all of it, it seemed to be a big bust. I would have been more sad due to this, but considering the big unit we bought, I had no issues. I took the car back to the luxury house and parked them up, then drove back for my items. Today was really long and honestly not worth it, but we still managed to make some good profits. Days 51 to 53 were massive for me, and I mean massive. I arrived at the storage lot very early, and to my surprise there were no units until 12, so you know what I did? Of course I played Sugar Pop until then. The clock struck 12 and I purchased my first unit for $14,000. It looked pretty promising from what I could see, and inside were a nice little car and a few epics. Not the best, but I'll take it. I took the car home and listed it up until a buyer approached me offering $12,750, so I took that offer. I sold off the rest of my items until the early hours of the next day, where I once again arrived too early at the storage site and played Sugar Pop one more time to pass the time. I'm not addicted, I promise. We had a pretty good run going, but as the units opened up, I took a peek and decided to buy one for $12,000, which luckily enough had some pretty good items and another car for me to sell. This time I had found an old taxi, so I drove it home, listed it, and eventually ended up selling it for $8,400. Not too shabby. I drove back to the units to collect my items and sold them off to build my profits even higher. To carry on what seemed like tradition, I visited the units too early and booted up Sugar Pop to bypass the time. I didn't have to wait too long for this, however, and as the first unit opened up, I was immediately liking what I saw. I ended up purchasing the unit for $16,000 and managed to get a third car and some really good items too. Like normal, I drove the car home to sell and deposited my items into the garage to repair and sell off. During these days, I was able to make a pretty good $5,000 on Sugar Pop and around $30,000 in total profit. Not a bad run, to be honest. Day 54 was a huge milestone for us. We began like every other day, hopping into the truck and driving to the storage lots. I saw some pretty good units for today, and the first one I had purchased had a possible car and the items inside that I could see were looking really good. I put in a final bid of $16,000 and managed to win, where I did in fact find a car, and even more really good items. I took my winnings home and listed the car, before heading back to the units and buying my second one for $8,000. This is where I unveiled my second car of the day. Look at us go. I took the car home and listed it while the items were recovered and listed too. Then once they had all gone to their new homes, I got in bed and saw that we made a whopping $28,000 in profit. This means that we had just hit over $200,000 for the first time. Days 55 to 57 were odd, but still quite important to the series. The first thing I did was try to calculate roughly how much we have in terms of assets. And by assets, I mean cars. We have so many cars that we might as well try and see whereabouts we are at. For each car, I looked at their resale value and multiplied it by around 1.25, as this was probably the closest I could get. After all cars were accounted for, I came out to a rough value of $285,000. My lord, that is a lot of money. Of course, it could be a lot less, but it also could be a lot more, so this value works for now. I carried on my day by arriving at the storage lot and playing Sugar Pop for an hour before the units became available. My first unit had a hidden car in the back and plenty of great items, and I managed to make the purchase for $7,000. Great value in my opinion. The second unit was once again for quite cheap. I paid a total of $4,000 and I was able to get some pretty good items. I was starting to run out of space in my truck, so I packaged all the items up and deposited them into the garage to sell. Once the items had been listed, I made my way back to the storage site and purchased a third unit for around $10,000. All I could see in this unit was a potential tarp, so I removed it and found myself a taxi. From what I remember, the taxi resale value is around $8,000 to $10,000, so I have made just about my money back. The next unit was looking the most promising so far. I put in a bid for $8,000, and when I scouted the ground floor, I came across several legendaries. This is perfect. The last unit of these days was possibly the best one yet. I put in my offer of $28,000 and eventually won it, then looked around to see what I had achieved. I lifted the tarp in the corner and sadly revealed a pile of boxes, which wasn't amazing, but looking around some more allowed me to see plenty of epics and legendaries for me to make money back, and possibly more. I did multiple trips to gather all the items and take them home for me to sell, and I ended my day comfy, knowing I had made around $12,000 profit in total. Days 58 and 59 were pretty standard. Once again, I arrived at the storage auction a bit early and decided to play Sugar Pop until 12. Even though I spent a few hours doing this, I was only able to grasp $1,000 profit from it. At least we didn't lose money though, right? The units opened up one by one and I purchased my first one for $20,000. I wasn't quite sure what I was expecting from this, but the tarp in the corner was calling my name. I lifted the tarp slowly and revealed another Lamborghini. No way. The unit obviously came with a few epics, which is always good, but another Lamborghini? What are the odds of that happening? I kept it safe for now and went on to buy my second unit for the day for $10,000. Inside lay another tarp, and when removing it, I found myself a posh car. I now had a dilemma of whether or not I should sell the Lamborghini, but I decided against it. Instead, I took both cars back and sold off the posh car as well as another car in my storage, just so I could make space for the second Lambo. I then took the journey back to the storage site and gathered my items to sell. The night was coming fast, but when I checked the report, I saw an amazing $5,000 profit. On its own, it's not great, but with the Lambo, it's amazing. Day 60 was, from my knowledge, our most profitable day to date. I woke up and instantly dashed to the truck to make my way, wasting no time before buying my first unit of the day. I spent a hefty $13,000 for this unit, and managed to win myself a pretty nice car that I considered keeping, as well as some epic items. Nothing to rave about, but all in all, pretty good. Before carrying on, I took the car home and decided to keep it as I quite liked the look of it. I arrived at my house and noticed people standing outside of it, so I was a little confused. I asked one of them why they were there and they wanted to buy my invisible car? I honestly have no idea, but I guess we reached an agreement and I sold the car? The air? I don't know anymore. Anyways, I carried on by picking which car I wanted to replace and listed it off to any potential buyers, while I parked my new car in a safe spot. I took the bus back to the storage auction and bought my second unit for $5,000. The items I found in this unit were nothing other than amazing, and for $5,000, that was a steal. I packaged it all up into the truck and moved on to Unit 3, which I ended up buying for a big $15,000. My money was well spent here, as I was able to win a car and some more great items. This day was looking great, and that feeling carried on when I got home and listed my car and items away. My tiredness was catching up to me, but my eyes lit up with glee when I read about our $58,000 profit. Holy smokes. I was beginning to think that my goals and objectives won't take 100 days, but I kept going just in case something bad happened. Days 61 and 62 were quite big for us also. I started the day off strong by purchasing a unit for $6,000, which from what I could see was another big steal. Units now were looking really good to me. I like it. I then moved on to Unit 2, which I had gracefully bought for $13,000. Inside lay a nice car under a tarp and some okay items. As long as I sold the car, it would be worth it. I took the car home and decided to sell another car so that I could park it at the house, and sprinted back to grab my items and take them home too. The next day started bright and early, as I got up to the storage lot and had to wait for a few hours, so you knew exactly what I would do. Yep, Sugar Pop. This was actually a great day for Sugar Pop though, as by the time the units opened up, I had made a whopping $10,000. This was a great start to a morning. My first unit of the day was looking alright, but still had potential. I bought it for around $10,000, and when I creeped over to the tarp in the corner, I lifted it up and found myself another car. It also had some okay items, but I'm more interested in the car right now. I kept it in the unit for now and moved on, where I saw another good looking one and I purchased it for $9,000. Now, I'm not too sure why I spent so much on this one, because from the looks of it, there was not a lot inside. That thought was 100% right, as when I looked around, there was not a lot inside, but that's okay. I took everything home and made sure they were all repaired and sold them off, and when I got in bed to check my report, my jaw almost dropped. 71k profit? How does that even happen? Another big milestone coming up on days 63 and 64. I woke up at the storage site, which was weird, but I guess I'm just that excited. I waited until 7 to snoop in on my first unit, and from what I could see, it was looking pretty good. So I purchased it for $18,000 and got some really good items that I soon repaired and stored in my truck, ready for me to take home. I threw the items into the garage and sold them off, making around $22,000 profit, which was insane. But I wasn't done just yet. I went back to the lots and bought a second unit for around $9,000. The man shouted sold, and the unit was all mine. So I ventured through the items and found a mid-car and some okay items. Nothing too amazing in here though. I once again took everything home and sold them off to the buyers before getting in bed and seeing our bank value sitting comfortably above $400,000 for the first time. Our millionaire status is so close. Day 65 was huge. Not only was it our biggest day to date, but it was also our biggest day in the entire video. I woke up and thought to myself, I do like my cars, but I only really like some of them. So I hopped out of bed and drove around to each house to sell every car that I didn't like. This took a lot of time out of my day, and by the end of it, our bank value was sitting at $529,000. We are now halfway to becoming a millionaire. I then spent the next couple of hours organising the cars I decided to keep at the luxury house, before setting off to purchase my first unit of the day. The unit door flipped open, and my eyes instantly were drawn to the legendary items sitting on the floor. I wanted this lot, and it was only for $5,000. This unit was insane. There were so many valuable items here that $5,000 didn't even make a dent. The good items were repaired and packaged up into the truck, and I decided to carry on the money making, so I bought a second unit for $4,000, which by some miracle was severely underpriced too. Today is just my day, I guess. Everything was swiftly repaired, and by the time night came around, everything had sold, and I checked the report to see that we had made over $160,000 in profit. I get that we sold the cars and everything, but 160k? That's crazy to me. Now, 66 and 67 were long and tedious days. Throughout these two, I had bought 8 units. Yep, 8. Let's go through each one, I suppose. Unit 1 looked great from the start, not only because of the items that I could clearly see and their value, but also because of the unit's price. My final bid was $4,000 and I became the winner, making this a large profit unit and a perfect start. Unit 2 was similar to the first, where I could see some very valuable items just laying on the floor. I managed to beat out my competitors and win the lot for $3,000. What is with these cheap and valuable units? Nevertheless, everything worth it was repaired and stored in the truck. Unit 3 was a larger unit, as I saw a possible car in the middle of the lot. I purchased the unit for $20,000 and unfortunately came across no car under the tarp, but I did find some pretty valuable legendaries. All in all, not a bust, so that's good. Unit 4 also had a possible car, but this time I could see many good items on the floor. I pushed through the doubt and bought it up for $16,000, where I later unveiled a car, and whilst looking around the boxes, I could see some very decent items worth a couple of thousand or so. Unit 5 was a small lot, as the only thing in there was a car, or at least that's all I could see. I put in my offer for $15,000 and the auctioneer granted me the win. I ripped off the tarp and revealed a second car, all for me. I kept the cars safe and packaged all the items in the truck or in my garage for safekeeping. Unit 6 was another severely underpriced unit, but they are always welcome in my world, of course. I ended up buying it for $3,000, and this may have been the most profitable unit, percentage-wise of course. Now, Unit 7 was our most expensive one yet. When the doors flipped open, I could see a possible car and a few nice looking items, so I put in my offer for $32,000. Yes, it's a lot of money, I know, but I had faith. I won the bids, and to my surprise, I lifted the tarp and revealed another Lamborghini. This is what, my third one by now? Give me something new, please. Actually, I can't actually complain. Unit 8 and our final one of the weekend. Once again, I could see a potential car in my view and a couple of okay items, but I knew that behind the car there could lie an amazing set of items. I bought the unit for $16,000 and unveiled another car. Not a Lambo this time, which I think I'm happy about. Maybe not because of the value, but oh well. I also scavenged through the boxes and found some more pretty good items for me to sell. My body was tired and my eyes were so sleepy, but I pushed through and got everything home to sell. And yes, I even sold the Lambo. I needed to. I crawled into bed, and with my last breath of awakeness, I read our bank balance and saw that we had made around $140,000 from these units. We are honestly so close now. Today was the day that I sold all my cars. Almost all, I should say. I woke up on day 68 and decided to sell all of my cars, apart from one Lamborghini. That's for a special reason, but without hesitation, I began selling them all and watching my bank value go higher and higher. Once they had all sold, I took my truck back to the storage lots and bought a mid-sized unit for about $12,000. Inside, I found myself an okay car, which was later sold of course, and some goodies for me to repair and sell. I then bought another unit for $4,000, which was one of them severely underpriced lots, and I'm very happy with that. I insta-sold all the commons and rares, and repaired the epics and legendaries before packing them into the truck to take home. Once home, the car and the rest of the items were then sold, and I checked the report to see that we had made $140,000 profit for the day. Not too long left now. Okay, this part is going to sound a little scripted, but I assure you this was not planned. I wanted to do a small experiment, this part was true, but doing it on day 69? Now that's weird. The experiment in mention was to see how much we could potentially win or lose if we spent the whole day, from 6 AM till 5 PM, playing Sugar Pop. I noted down my starting cash at around $851,000 and began my auto spin. The hours went by and nothing really happened. It was honestly so underwhelming, but I'm kinda glad that I didn't instantly just lose all of my money. The clock struck 5 and we had only lost $4,000 during that long span of time. But 8 out of 10 would do again. I didn't want to be down too much today, so I did some blackjack for the first time in this playthrough and managed to get back to where I roughly was at the start of the day. This day was pretty much just a dud, but I would definitely retry it sometimes. I was so close yet so far, and for days 70 to 73, I bought several units to get my bank balance as near as possible to that $1 million mark. Unit 1 was bought for around $13,000, and inside lay a mid-car and some goods. Since I had sold all the cars, I decided to sell this one too, as it would contribute greatly to a great cause. Unit 2 was another one of them underpriced bins. I ended up purchasing the lot for $4,000, and grabbed up all the legendaries and epics to throw into the truck. After that, our truck was looking a little full, but I kept on going and moved on to Unit 3, which I could clearly see some valuable legendaries in the corner of my eye. I put in a final bid of $7,000 and managed to win. Then gathered all the good items I could and forced them into the truck, then drove home and deposited the items before heading back and carrying on my purchases. Unit 4 was looking pretty good, as in view was a potential car and some good items here and there. I bought it all for about $9,000 and removed the tarp, revealing a pretty good car. So far the day is going as planned. Next to be bought was Unit 5, and like the others, this was looking pretty great too. The price I paid ended up being around $5,000, and for this price I think I got some good value, and more importantly some good profits. The last unit had another potential car, and that's all I could really see. I still ended up bidding around $16,000 because under the tarp was in fact another car, a perfect way to end it all. I took each and every item home and listed the cars up first before listing the legendaries and epics. At the end of these days, I was able to rake in around $64,000 in profit, putting us that little bit closer to our objective. I really cannot wait. We were now so close to hitting that $1 million, but let's keep going, shall we? Day 74 began like a regular day, making my way to the storage lot and viewing each possible unit before opening time. My first unit was purchased for $8,000, and it seemed like one of those too good to be true scenarios, but this was such a good deal. Plenty of amazing items for me to repair and sell. Moving on to Unit 2, and no word of a lie, this was a time where I felt confident that there was a car. Unfortunately, this was the biggest bait of the series, as there was no car at all, but instead just several boxes. Not good at all. I then bought my second unit for $16,000, which granted me a nice little rusted taxi worth maybe half the unit of the value, and many more great legendaries. I'm loving it so far. I drove the taxi home to list up whilst I headed back and collected my items. They were then added to eBay and sold off one by one. The day ended and I managed to snatch a quick $33,000 profit. Day 75 came around and we were now in arm's reach of our last objective of the video. I thought about it and decided that now would be a perfect time to sell the Lambo. I listed it up for a very specific price, and later through the day an individual approached me wanting to buy it, so we agreed and shook hands. We had finally done it. $1 million is now in our grasp. It felt like only yesterday that I had half of this. I am so proud of how far and how fast we managed to scale up. I drove around to each house, taking in all of my accomplishments so far, and completely forgot that I have a car at the normal house still. I hopped in and drove around the neighborhood, taking it all in one last time. I then took the car back to the luxury house, and like I'm Mr. Beast, I decided to sell it for $1 before I ventured back to our very first house and slept where it all started. I'm really gonna miss this place. And there we have it, ladies and gentlemen, 100 days of storage hustle. Well, I guess 75 days, right? This one was really fun to do, as a lot of days would boost you up, but others would just throw you back down. I was surprised at how fast I managed to achieve all of my objectives, and although I ended it here, I would have had no issue carrying it on. I do hope you have enjoyed this video, and if you have, then please consider liking the video and perhaps subscribing to keep up with the content. And if there's a game that you would love for me to check out, then comment down below. But as always, stay hydrated, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace. I don't know, maybe I'll become the owner of a gas station soon, who knows.